If Christianity is true, why are there so many denominations? When I first became a Christian, I remember driving down the streets of Los Angeles County and seeing, because I wasn't sure where to even go to church, right? But there were a lot of options. I mean, there was all kinds of denominations of church, Christian church in Southern California. And I thought, if Christianity is true, wouldn't there just be like one place to go to get it? I mean, why are there all these different denominations? I can see why people might think that variety of different opinions might actually demonstrate that Christianity isn't true. But even as an atheist, I recognize that, to hold a view, and if humans hold it, there's going to be all kinds of variety about their views. That tells you more about humans than it does about any view held by humans, about any claim embraced by humans. Atheism also divides into a number of different camps: strong atheism, weak atheism, implicit atheism, logical atheism. You can go on and on. Every view held by humans eventually starts to break down into different camps, because that's who we are. That's our nature as prideful, rebellious know-it-alls. We all are. We all struggle with that, and it takes every view. It's kind of the equivalent of saying, hey, the USA isn't true because there are 50 states. The fact that there are 50 different views about how you ought to govern locally within the larger thing called the United States just demonstrates how if you give people enough time, they will divide over any claim, true or otherwise. The fact that there are many denominations of Christianity does not bother me, because I know that's how people do things. But let me give you something else to think about. You believe in the existence of the universe, right? I do too. You realize, though, that cosmologists are wildly divided on both how the universe got here, how it sustains itself, and why it looks fine-tuned. The number of theories about the emergence of the universe, from Big Bang cosmology or any kind of cyclical cosmology, or you name it, multiverse theories, quantum theories, there are a number of ways that physicists divide. This is their division over their notions related to the universe either nullify the existence of the universe or even the validity of their work as scientists? Of course it doesn't. This is the nature of who we are as people, right? Even when we embrace something as true, we will divide over how we interpret that something. This is also true for every worldview, including Christianity. Let me give you one last thing, though, to consider as you respond to this objection. Why would you be surprised for a moment that we wouldn't disagree? I think I'd be more shocked if we had agreement, and I would suspect something's up if a set of people agreed over a long period of time on every single detail than if they disagreed. Because again, it comes down to our personal likes and dislikes, the differences between people, and that ugly little thing that divides all of us repeatedly, called pride. In the end, it's not a view that has a problem if people interpret the view differently. It's about the problem with people. That's just the nature of who we are. We don't agree on small details related to even the most benign matters, let alone critical matters. Why would you be surprised that we would disagree about things when it comes to any worldview, including Christianity? Is the Bible full of contradictions? You can't help but read the scriptures, especially in the New Testament, where you have parallel accounts, right? You have the four gospel authors. They are all writing about the ministry of Jesus. But if you compare those ministries, put them parallel to each other, you will see that those four accounts are different. Are they contradictory? Are they making claims that contradict one another? If that's the case, you know that when somebody contradicts himself in a criminal trial, I'm going to basically consider his testimony unreliable. But is that what's happening here? Are the gospel authors contradictory? Or is it a matter of variations that aren't really contradictory at all, but they are different? Differences do not make contradictions. And we have to be very careful when we look at that. And I never flinched for a second, I will tell you, as a new investigator of the Gospels. I was 35 years old, never read through the Gospels. I'm reading for the first time, and I am seeing the differences between each account. And I'm like, well, okay, you know what? This is actually comforting, because that's what I would expect to see when you've got different people who have different perspectives. And when I say this, I only say it from years of experience talking to multiple eyewitnesses of the same event. That event can happen just an hour ago, but I guarantee you they will have a different account. And why are they different? Well, a lot of times they're different because the witnesses have different perspectives. Now, when I say perspectives, I don't just mean geographic perspectives, although that could be the case. If I'm standing a little further away than you are, my view might be different than you. I might catch more of what's happening, but I might miss some important detail of what was said from just 3 feet away. So a geographic perspective is important, but also just your own interests, that perspective of what you're interested in. Like I will tell you, whenever I do a case and I'm wanting to get a good description of clothing, I seldom will ask the male witnesses. I know that sounds crazy, but I've had better success asking if there's a mom, for example, somebody who's been married for a long time and has dressed both her husband and her children. Good chance she's going to know. That wasn't just a collared shirt. That was the collared shirt that has the soft collar. It's kind of flipping up on the side, and it had the wrist, the armband that was kind of tight to the arm, kind of like a polo shirt. These kinds of descriptions, you might actually offer that kind of description if you have that kind of interest, or if you own that kind of shirt, you might be thinking, that's just like my shirt, and I can describe my shirt in detail. This might account, and it does account, for why witnesses give what appear to be different accounts of the same event. They aren't really different. Let me give you another way to think about this, though. As a homicide detective, I only ask dispatchers for one thing when they call me to the scene of a homicide. Like, I'm at home, it's 2 a.m, I'm asleep, and I don't really want to go out anywhere, right? But now I get woken up by a phone call. Yeah, we've had a shooting at 5th and Figueroa. Okay, so I got to go to 5th and Fig. Okay, is anybody there right now? Of course, yeah, they did. Police officers are on scene. Okay, one request. I only make one request of the dispatcher. Do me a favor, have the officers separate the eyewitnesses. Then I get dressed and I go. Why do I have that as my only request? Because if they don't separate those eyewitnesses when I get there, those 4 or 5 eyewitnesses will have talked for an hour, and then they'll tell me the same story 5 times. I don't want that. I want the apparent, messy, quote-unquote contradictory claims they're going to make, because they're not really contradictory. My job as the detective is to puzzle this back into the richest, most complete profile, basically a cumulative statement from everyone, even though I know that each person is going to add just one piece of that larger statement puzzle. The only thing I ask for is separate those eyewitnesses, because I know that apparent differences between eyewitness accounts is the very earmark of reliable eyewitness testimony. So when I read through the Gospels and I saw that there were differences, yeah, no kidding, there are differences, it didn't shake me. In fact, it encouraged me. For the third reason I like to offer, and I'll give it to you right now, do you not think that the people who formed the canon of Scripture didn't have enough time to make changes to the accounts, to seam out all those, to get all those messy little differences all figured out? They could have gotten rid of certain gospel accounts or just changed them to make sure they were all word for word identical. Do you really think that skeptics of the Gospels, if they had 4 identical word for word accounts, would think that they're actually more reliable? No, they would say this is clearly collusion. They all say the exact same thing. That is the problem when accounts you try to actually make them say the same thing. You're far better off just letting each person infuse his or her account with whatever it is that's in his perspective, in his interest set, from his geographic perspective, from his own life background, from what it is he likes or dislikes. Those kinds of accounts will appear maybe even to be contradictory. Read a little deeper. You'll be able to reconcile those differences. They're not contradictory, they're just different. And that is how we know they're reliable.